Welcome to the Can of Corn podcast, the podcast for baseball fans, by baseball fans. I'm William Wilson, and as always, I'm here with my co-host,
Eric Harper.
And today we're going to be talking about the late, great Bob Gibson and his pivotal role in baseball. There are very few people that have played the game that have had such an impact as he did. And we'll also be talking about the playoffs so far and what we think and what we've seen. How are you doing today, Eric?
I'm doing well, William. How about yourself?
Doing pretty good. We talked about this off air a little bit, but it's kind of disappointing that we had no baseball games this weekend, and I really think that was the MLB's fault, and I'd like answers.
Like you said, just take the whole playoff schedule, move it back a couple of days so that we can watch some games on the weekend. I don't know what they were thinking.
They weren't thinking. So, unfortunately, 2020 has claimed another one of our baseball greats in Bob Gibson. This has not been a year for baseball players and baseball legends. And I know that you've cooked up some stats here for him. How about you run through those? Let's see what he did.
Yes. Bob Gibson, he accomplished a couple of things in his career.
Just a few.
He managed to pitch in the major leagues for 17 seasons, which I think that's an accomplishment in itself. All of them with the St. Louis Cardinals. You really don't see guys sticking with one club anymore, and so he spent his entire 17-year career, 1959 to 1975, with the St. Louis Cardinals. He won 251 games, and had a career ERA under 3, 2.91 ERA. He won the 1968 MVP award, which, as baseball fans know, pitchers winning MVP awards, it's a very hard thing to do, because people love the home run, and for a defensive player to win MVP is an incredible feat. But how could you not give it to him in 1968? And that's probably what the baseball writers were thinking. How could we not give him the MVP award when he had the lowest ERA in a single season ever, a record that still stands to this day with 1.12 ERA over 34 games. He went 22-9 that season. And in the 9 games that he lost, I mean, you might think, how could someone lose 9 games in a season that they had a 1.12 ERA? In those 9 games that he lost, his ERA for those losses was 2.1. Imagine having a 2.1 ERA over the games that you lost. But I mean, those games were like 2-1, 3-0. They're very close, and
I would be so mad at my offense.
Yeah, and Bob Gibson historically was he was pretty upset that his team just couldn't get the runs. They would joke and say that he was the closer for their team, and there was a story that Bob Gibson told in this Ken Burns baseball documentary, where Gibson said that his teammates would go to him after they would score a run. They would be up 1-0, and then they would go to Bob and say, "All right, Bob, that's it. Go shut them out." and that was somewhat a joke, somewhat honest. That's what he had to do. But yeah, his dominance, 9-time All-Star, you alluded to this before we got on the air, is 9-time Gold Glove Award winner. But as you mentioned, I didn't realize this, 9 consecutive. That is insane, to win 9 consecutive Gold Gloves. He won 2 World Series, He was the World Series MVP for both of those, the 1964 and 1967 World Series. And of course, after that 1968 season in which he had that 1.12 ERA, it caused Major League Baseball to lower the mound. I mean, how many guys can say that they changed the game, changed the rules, that the game was completely different after what they were able to accomplish? I mean, so few guys can say that. I think the phrase "someone changed the game" gets thrown out a lot lately, as just sort of like, I don't know, just another way to praise a guy. Mm-hmm. But, he literally changed the game of baseball. Yeah. What I thought was pretty cool, in the 1967 and 1968 World Series, he, of course, ended up not winning the 68 World Series, but in 67 and 68 World Series, he hit a home run in both of those World Series. I mean, there are guys, offensive players that, they play in the Fall Classic and they never get to say that they hit a World Series home run. But here's a guy who is a pitcher and he goes deep twice in the World Series. And then you also made a great point as well before we got on, is, he passed away 52 years to the day after his 17 strikeout game, which is a World Series record that still stands. Just an incredible player, and I think an incredible competitor as well. The stories that I've heard about Bob, there was one that I found particularly funny, and it really paints a picture of the type of fierce competitor that he was. Is the last pitch he threw in the major leagues, he gave up a grand slam to a guy named Pete Lecoq. And then, Bob Gibson retires. Of course, he's inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame in 1981. Fast forward, I believe it's 10 or 11 years after his last game in the major leagues, and he's playing in an old-timers game. And, those games are, like, just for fun. Fans show up. And, it's really not supposed to be taken that seriously. But who steps up to bat against Bob Gibson is Pete Lecoq. And the last time Bob saw Pete, he gave up a grand slam to him.
Please tell me you plunked him.
He hit Pete Lecoq in the old-timers game. And Bob Costas, he goes up to Bob Gibson after the game, and he's like, Bob, what was that all about? And Bob Gibson says that there must be balance. And so you go deep off of me. Even if he had to wait a decade, he was going to get Pete. Whether it was at a supermarket with an orange, he was going to get Pete. It didn't matter when or where it was going to be. That's the type of competitor that Bob was. And when Pete Lecoq was asked about it, he was thrilled that Bob Gibson, this icon, would think so highly of him, to think that, like, oh, I need to get him for hitting a home run off of me. Pete didn't take any offense to it at all. And Pete said that it was a highlight of his life that Bob Gibson hit him with a pitch. And that was just the type of competitor, how much Bob Gibson was respected.
Yeah, you mentioned his 9 Gold Gloves, and that takes incredible athleticism to win a Gold Glove. And I didn't know this until I started doing some research on him. He was actually under contract by the Harlem Globetrotters. So at one point he played for the Globetrotters and the Cardinals at the same time. And, we talk about these 2 sports stars, and he definitely was one. We know that the Harlem Globetrotters they're a fake team, and they're out there to entertain the fans and to do trick shots, but that all takes incredible athleticism. And this guy, he was the epitome of intimidation. The only person that I could compare him to in modern baseball would probably be Randy Johnson. Just Randy staring over the glove, and both guys weren't afraid to brush you off the plate, send you, 96, 97 mile an hour fastball up near your chin just to get you off the plate. He was very plate dominant.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And personally, I love those type of old school pitchers where, they're gonna take their half of the plate, and when you step into the box, you don't know which half they're gonna take, but they'll let you know. And it's everything about him was just so incredible. Bob Costas also mentioned when he was growing up in New Jersey and he was watching the Cardinals play, some 800 miles away, on his television, he would see Bob Gibson, like you said, peer over his glove and just looking at the batter with his eyes squinted, and he just said that you can feel him peering in at you through your television screen.
Mm-hmm.
And how incredible that must have been to watch him on TV. Incredibly jealous, never got to watch him play. But I think he's definitely one of the ones where you think of the all-time greatest pitchers, and I think he has to be in that Mount Rushmore conversation of the all-time greats.
Of course.
Yeah, I mean, of course, being in Cooperstown says that, he's an all-time great, but, we all know that you can be a Hall of Famer, and then you can be in that inner circle of Hall of Famers. There's few that are, if there was a league above the show, they would be in that league. And I think Bob Gibson was definitely one of those guys.
He was the Hall of Fame of the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, exactly.
What's funny is I actually had when we did our fantasy teams 2 weeks ago, or 3 weeks ago now, I had Bob as my starting pitcher, and just for all of those reasons, he's just absolutely plate dominant, and it doesn't matter how good of a hitter you were when you got in that box against Bob Gibson. There was always that fear, and if a pitcher can instill fear in a batter, he's won.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And another funny story about Bob Gibson is, when he would peer in at people and he would sort of squint his eyes, and people just thought, oh, he looks so mean or whatever, and then he would be out in public. Maybe a player, an opposing player, would see him out in public, and he would be wearing glasses, and they would say, "You wear glasses? You're gonna kill someone out there." He couldn't see. That's why he was squinting his eyes. You can't see, and you have a 1.12 ERA, and you change the game. That's like, recently that story of Steph Curry when he went and got LASIK or something like that, and the greatest shooter of all time is looking at a blurry basket. It's kind of like that. You change the game and your eyesight's not all there. And you're throwing 100 miles an hour up near guys, near their head.
What could he have done if he could see?
Yeah, we'll never know. But he might have won 500 games if he could see.
Yeah, exactly. Sub 1 ERA.
Yeah.
Well, we've talked about late great legends a lot lately, and I just encourage anybody who is, from our type of generation, a younger generation who didn't get to see these guys play, do yourself a favor, get on YouTube and pull up some highlights, pull up some old games and watch, because it's a lot of fun seeing those older players, and it just gives you an appreciation for what they did and how they played, because the game is very different now. Speaking about a very different game, we've got the 2020 playoffs going on. So um, it has been a wild ride so far. I know that you and I both have some teams out that we expected to move on. But I think that it's been a good playoff so far. I've enjoyed watching it.
Yeah, absolutely. Me too. It has definitely been insane. Definitely not how I expected it. Definitely have a busted bracket.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, a lot of great rivalries still in the playoffs. And these games so far have been incredible. Particularly the San Diego Padres, they are putting on a show right now.
Oh yeah, we haven't seen a whole lot of history this year just because of the shortened season, but Will Myers and Fernando Tatis Jr. hitting 2 home runs in the same game. That's the first time that has happened in the playoffs since Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig. Like, they're in Ruth and Gehrig territory. That's insane to me. But if anybody's going to do it, I mean, that Padres lineup has a lot of pop, has a lot of power. So, and I think going into playoffs, it's always kind of personal for me, who I want to win, and for me it was the St. Louis Cardinals, just because I am a huge Paul Goldschmidt fan and love to see him get a ring. But now that they're out, I would have to say I'd probably like to see the Padres win. They're one of the few teams that do not have a World Series title. So to see them go and make it all the way, I think that'd be pretty exciting. And then, you mentioned some rivalries. We've got the Rays and the Yankees. Talk about Bob Gibson plunkings. I think we got some plunkings coming ahead.
Oh, yeah. I think you're absolutely right. You got, Aroldis Chapman, who can get it up there, near 110 miles an hour at times, it seems. Mm-hmm. And you hope that he hits you, in the, as the old time announcers would say, in the keister. But it might be in between the letters. It might be in the helmet. Hopefully not. But we've seen him do that a couple of times with some race players. Yeah, no love lost between those teams. I mean, no. I know it's not a Red Sox-Yankees rivalry, but I think I still think it's pretty legitimate, the hate between these two teams, for sure.
Oh yeah, we saw that this year. Those two teams do not like each other. So looking ahead, looks like we've got the Astros and the Athletics, and the Yankees and the Rays on the American League side, and then on the National League side, we've got Braves and Marlins, and Padres and Dodgers. Who, at this point in the playoffs, who's your World Series teams, and who do you pick to win out of those two teams?
World Series teams, of course. I originally had the White Sox and the Dodgers, but I'm gonna go with the Rays and the Dodgers as my World Series picks.
Be very careful who you say is going to win the World Series here, Eric.
This might be the last episode of this show, but I've got the Dodgers holding up the trophy, the Commissioner's Trophy, at the end of this season. That team is just insane. They added now, of course, we all know Mookie Betts on there. They have just, it seems like MVP caliber talent at almost every position. And I don't count out Clayton Kershaw. I know that he is kind of an easy target for some memes, or as Bryce Harper likes to say, some memes. But I know he's an easy target, for the jokes. due to his lack of, I'll say, performance in the playoffs. And I think he is getting over it. I think with David Price, it was the same thing in 2018 with the Red Sox. David Price was like 0-11 or something like that in playoff starts. And then he finally got that win under his belt, and then he was able to shut everything out. And it's not like Clayton Kershaw is winless in the playoffs. His ERA isn't great. He does have a losing record in the playoffs, but that's also attributed to the manager leaving him in too long. And people could have said his last great outing here in the playoffs when he went 8 shutout innings. Oh, why didn't you leave him in? He's got a shutout through 8. It's Clayton Kershaw. Well, because we've seen what happens when Clayton Kershaw is left in too long. And I think I'm hoping, at least, that Dave Roberts is able to manage a little bit more intelligently this time around. I know, what is this, 3rd time's the charm? But, yeah, I think Walker Buehler, Clayton Kershaw, Tony Gonsolin, you got so many good starters on that team, along with just like light tower power at almost every single position there. They're scary, but the same thing could be said for essentially any other team. I mean, look at I know the Padres pitching took a hit with Mike Clevenger, likely being out for the rest of the season, but they still have Paddock. They have some other great arms on that team as well, and we've seen what their offense can do. If if their pitching isn't great and their offense is told, hey, you need to score 7 runs a game, their offense is going to do it.
Yeah, that lineup is very power heavy, and you got Hosmer and Cronenworth as well. And then you've also got Pham with the speed. And, you can't forget, the other guy, the shortstop. What's his name? I don't know.
Yeah, some guy. I don't know. He's not important.
But, I do know that Clayton Kershaw is a listener of this show. He's a diehard fan of this show. And, Clayton, I'm talking to you right now. You can go ahead and choke. It's okay. We won't hold it against you. Looking at the Braves and the Marlins, we were talking a little bit about this earlier. The Braves, just the young talent on that team is unbelievable. The Marlins, I was not expecting them to get a 2-game sweep over the Cubs. But now they've reached probably their biggest hurdle in the Braves. And I fully expect the Braves to come out of that series over the Marlins.
Oh, yeah.
My teams that I have winning, I've got the Padres and the Athletics in the World Series, and I have the Padres raising the trophy. I think it'd be great to see, a championship in San Diego. Personally, one of my favorite vacation spots. They've lost a football team. They've never won a World Series. They've been down and out for a long time, and I think they've done a great job to build this team and to manage it effectively. So I think they deserve a lot of credit there, and I think that they have decent enough pitching. And I think they've got the offense to win it all. Athletics Astros as well. That's going to be an interesting series because no one likes the Astros.
Oh yeah, and then that's definitely true. And imagine Mike Fiers, who was the whistleblower for the whole Astros scandal, then left. He left the team, then, acted as the whistleblower, and then Mike Fiers pitches for the Athletics, we could see Mike Fiers facing his former team that he, exposed to the league. Imagine the tension in that game.
The storylines in this playoffs are everything we hoped it would be. Yeah, I mean, we're gonna have a plunk fest in the American League, I think. Yeah, this is gonna be very interesting. So what do we have? American League, ALDS starts tomorrow, and then NLDS starts on Tuesday, I believe.
Yeah. Again, wish it was a Friday or Saturday or something like that, but Monday or Tuesday works, I guess.
Hey, you know what? We're all work from home. Just throw it up on the monitor, throw it up on the TV, have it some background noise, enjoy yourself some baseball. Yeah, I think we were very close to not having baseball this year, and that would have been a deep disappointment for a lot of people. But I think we're getting a really decent playoffs out of it, out of this weird season.
Yeah, exactly. Might have been only 60 games, but as you said, there's no shortage of storylines in this postseason. So I think we're getting our money's worth in this one. Obviously, with the more games too, that's always fun. I believe if, of course, this can't happen now, but I believe if every postseason series went to the maximum number of games, it would have been like 65 games, I believe. So there was a potential to have more playoff games than regular season games, which is insane. But that's 2020 for you.
Yeah. Okay, so Eric, what do you think about this expanded playoffs? Would you like to see it moving forward, or is this something that we should just leave in 2020?
I think it's something that we should leave in 2020. It makes sense for this season, of course, allowing more teams to get in. If you got a team that is slow to start, you don't want them a week into the season now to have no chance. So it makes sense for this season, but in the future, a full 162, you're letting 16 out of 30 teams into the playoffs. I think it kind of waters down the trophy, in my opinion. But for me, I think it makes sense for this season, but I hope that they keep it in 2020. What about you?
I think 16 was a little bit too much. I would like to see them expand it a little bit. Maybe going to, 12 teams would be nice. But yeah, I agree that 16 was a little bit too much. And it would be strange, like the way that they did it, like if the Dodgers got knocked out in the first round, playing an 8 seed, or bottom of the barrel kind of seed, like just squeaked in. So I don't know. I think this year was fine. This was the year for experimentation. So I think that I do think that it needs to be a little expanded, but not 16. But it's I think this should be an interesting playoffs going forward. I want to put you on the spot here. If you had to pick one game to watch this next week, what would it be? Which two teams?
I would pick the Yankees and the Rays for exactly as you said. We're going to see some plunking. There's a lot of bad blood there. I think it's going to be a super interesting, heated matchup.
Yeah, I think it's going to be fun to watch. I think the team and the game that I would pick would be the Dodgers and the Padres. I've always been biased for National League, but also I think those are just two powerhouse offenses, and I think that's going to be a very good series to watch.
Oh yeah, absolutely. No love lost there either.
Nope.
We've seen what Trent Grisham has done to Clayton Kershaw. We might see more of that.
I still think it's nuts. We've got 3 California teams in the playoffs. When you got a place as big as California, I guess that can happen.
That's true.
All right. Well, that brings us to the end of this week's Can of Corn podcast. Thanks so much for listening. Please be sure to leave us some love by leaving us a review on Apple Podcasts. Also, if you'd like to get in contact with us, you can always email us at thecanofcornpodcast@gmail.com. Please be sure to tune in next week for some more baseball talk, and be sure to catch some good playoff baseball this next week. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you later. So long, everybody.